Hey everyone, welcome to episode 442 of the All Dolphins podcast on this Tuesday, December 31st, 2024, New Year's New Year's Eve. Pleased to be joined by Antoine Staley, the one, the only man extraordinaire, covers the New York Jets for the New York Daily News, having a blast this season covering a really, really riveting team that's 4-12. Okay, who am I kidding? Antoine, how bad's it been?
I don't know if we have enough time to get into all of that, but like the Cliff Notes version is like it's been an abject disaster. That's probably the best way. I think that's the best way to put it. Yeah, it's just been a lot of talking, a lot of dysfunction. This was kind of very soap opera like, and the season, regular season will be over for them, and now they have to find a GM and a coach at the same time. So definitely a lot of interest in all season for sure.
The Jets, who the Dolphins will face Sunday at 4:25 p.m. at MetLife Stadium in a must-win game. Remember, the Dolphins need a win against the Jets and a Denver Broncos loss against the Kansas City Chiefs, who are not expected to play any of the frontline guys, even though Andy Reid declined to make a public declaration Monday, saying he wanted to talk to his players first. I guess the first and obvious question is, how much of a desire, interest would the Jets have in actually going all out to try to defeat the Dolphins and end their season right then and there?
We talked to some of the players on Monday about that, and they really didn't seem too interested in it. Like they see, I think they're at the point now where it's been a disaster season, and they like a lot of players just wanted to be over at this point. So I don't. It could be the Dolphins, it could be the Cleveland Browns, whoever. I know it's a division rivalry, but I think a lot of the players are just like, yeah, I mean, that's fine. I think some of them may find motivation in that, but I have a hard time believing, especially just the players that we spoke to, that they really going to care that much there. I think more or less like they would want to just go out on a winning note. I mean, they've only won 2 games since Halloween, so they definitely yeah, exactly. So I think they would just want to get a victory there, especially for Albrecht, considering the tough year that he's had since being an interim coach. He's only had 2 wins since becoming interim coach back on October the 8th.
Yeah, you know what my take would be from where I stand, and you can tell me I'm crazy, but you can tell me I'm crazy at any time. But in this particular scenario here, is I get my take is the Jets were going to come out and play hard, but the second something goes awry or they fall behind, it's going to be like, oh yeah, here we go again. To hell with that. Let's just end it already.
Yeah, it's a snowball effect. I mean, that's kind of what it was. You look at the Buff game against the Bills. I mean, for about a quarter and a half, like it was still a close game. I mean, I know Buffalo was up 7-0, and then the safety happened, and then that started to they started to unravel there. And then even at halftime, it wasn't terribly bad, although you kind of felt like Buffalo should be winning by a lot more than what they are. And then the third quarter just completely unraveled to the point where they gave up 3 touchdowns in 5 minutes, which is just it's insane. So yeah, I think you're right on that too. And instead, I think the Jets they played close games all year. I mean, they played one against the Dolphins a few weeks ago. They went the overtime, but it is a good point that as soon as something comes up, whether it be penalties, this team is very undisciplined. They lead the league in penalties right now. So yeah, I definitely think once something does happen, then things could come off the rails, and it seems like that's been the case big time this year.
Yeah, and I'm glad you brought up the Dolphins game because I tweeted about this yesterday that like of all the games we can look back on for the Dolphins being in this predicament where they need help from the Chiefs who have nothing to play for, that Colts game where there was a ton of penalties, 2 fumbles lost, including one like in the 15-yard line, 1 missed field goal. And if only that hadn't, the Murphy's Law of that game hadn't happened, they wouldn't be in this position. Well, the flip side is, if we're going to be honest about it, Jets having a 1st and 10 at the Dolphins 27 with a minute and a half left in a tie game had zero business losing that game. And it was basically like almost some genius mastermind in the background to go like, wow, let's see what we can do to make the Jets not win this game. I mean, it was like stupidity beyond belief, like every step of the way. And I guess that's a good microcosm of the season for the Jets, is it not? That game?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think more or less the Buffalo game, but I think that mistake there because I felt like they had it in hand. I was like, okay, they're definitely they're going to end up pulling this out. Because I thought, at least from an offensive perspective, I thought that was the best game they had played all year. Aaron seemed like he had some good chemistry with Devontae Adams. They were able to run the ball a little bit as well. Although and defensively, I mean, they were bad. Sauce Gardner was out, and they just weren't able to get things rolling. They weren't able to stop the Dolphins. But to make that mistake, special teams wise, they just killed them, and then they gave the Dolphins some momentum. And obviously, the overtime, once Miami got the ball, I was like, yeah, I think I know what's going to happen here, and that's exactly what ended up happening with the Jonnu Smith game with a touchdown.
We're talking on Tuesday, so obviously this is a projection and things might change. But I know Devontae Adams left the game briefly against the Bills, did return from what I saw. Sauce Gardner left the game. You anticipating any frontline players being kept out because they're dealing with minor stuff and the game doesn't mean anything?
I think Devontae will play for sure. I think unless something crazy were to happen, although this is the Jets, so those things do tend to happen. Sauce is going to be interested because he came into the game questionable with the hamstring injury anyway, and then he re-aggravated it. So I I would think they would probably keep him out, but he really wanted to play against the Bills, and he really wants to play against the Dolphins on Sunday. So I would think they would keep him out because I don't think there's any reward of playing him at this point, especially when you have a nagging hamstring like that. If you have any kind of nagging injuries at this point, just sit out, and you got the whole off season to kind of recover. But this organization, this regime, really that's there. I mean, they know they're not going to be there next year anyway, so they're not really doing what's in the best interest long term for the players. So I think they just would like to have a win, and they're going to put the best players on the field that can make that happen.
Here's one that's kind of not related to the game on Sunday, but I look at Sauce Gardner, like after his rookie year, is like people were ready to anoint him. This guy's like top 3 NFL cornerback and all that, and hasn't been anywhere like that since then. I mean, is this
well? I think he did last year. I think his first 2 years were really good. This year has been definitely down.
Was it mostly injury related, or was he not quite the same player anyway?
Both. I think both this year. I think he has suffered some injuries there, nagging injuries, but also I think he's been called for holding a lot more. I think they've made an emphasis there. I think teams have probably call NFL offices and say, well, this guy is very grabby and touchy. And it's something that, they've put a lot of more emphasis on. Like, if you remember his first 2 years, he's played very similar, the same way where he's, very, handsy and, grab receivers there. And, he walked that line. He got away with it because the referees allowed him to. Now they're not allowing him to get rid of, get away with some of the same stuff. So he has to adjust his game there. That's something he's probably going to have to work on in the offseason, being less handsy. But I think also that's going to be a part of his game because he's long and, he's a tall guy. He's 6'3". He's very rangy there in that manner. And a lot of receivers that he faces are, shorter than he is. So he's definitely going to use that to an advantage. But he just has to kind of maybe, do it in a certain way where it's not as obvious, maybe. And I think that's the key to him, like in his success. But he's still a good player. I think he's just having a bad year, which tends to happen from time to time.
Okay, I'll give you another one. I don't know how often you've seen the Steelers play, and apologize, Steelers fans, if that offends you or whatever. But my good buddy Paul Gireffi, if you're watching this, love you, buddy. But this is a fact. If you watch the Steelers play, Joey Porter Jr. is a very, very good cornerback. And there's a Dolphins tie. His father used to play for the Dolphins, but that dude is grabby like nobody's business. And if the refs eventually decide we're going to call it tight on him, he's going to have some major penalty problems.
Oh, yeah, for sure. And I think that's why I say you have to adjust it. I asked Jeff Albrecht about this. I asked one of the other defensive coaches as well. And they kind of said the same thing there. Like, yeah, he's definitely going to have to something he's going to have to work on there. It's not, I mean, he just hadn't been able to adjust to the way that they're calling it there. I mean, he got called for a pass interference against Buffalo, too, which, a lot of people thought it was kind of, could go either way. I didn't think it was a lot there. But again, like, it's going to be games where, as games are going to be called tight. Some games are called tighter than others. And I think what played a role into that last week's game is, the Jets and Buffalo don't necessarily like each other. They had like an incident in the tunnel last year. And I think the referees probably went in the game thinking, okay, we need to call this very as tight as possible. So something like that does not happen again. So, but each game is going to be different, but that is something. He's still young enough. He's 24 years old. So he's still in a good place. And I think, he does something he's definitely going to have to work on in all season. I think Sauce will. I think he has that motivation where he really wants to get it right. And I also think something that something to be said about he wants to right the ship for the Jets too. He wants to be a part of the solution. Some players maybe don't want to, but I think he wants to be there long term. And they can also pick up his 5th-year option after the season, which I fully expect that they will. Him and Garrett, I expect them to do the same. And they also picked Jermaine Johnson in the first round of the 2022 draft. That'll be more of an interesting conversation. But I think Sauce is definitely in their long-term plans for sure.
Yeah, and then if we're talking like hand Z cornerbacks, I want to mention the Dolphin player is Cater Cole, who used to have that issue early in his career. That's kind of gotten straightened out, and the dude, as it bears repeating, because the dude's playing some really, really good ball. You mentioned, going back to Sauce Gardner, do the Jets have enough pieces in place for a quick turnaround if they hire the right coach? Which to me would scream if Mike Vrabel comes to the Jets, I'm thinking, at some point the Jets are going to be a problem, because I think the world of Mike Vrabel as the head coach. Do they have enough pieces in place for a quick turnaround? Obviously, understanding the quarterback position is a big question mark.
Well, you kind of took the words out of my mouth. They have a good foundation with young players like Garrett and Sauce and Breeze there, Jermaine Johnson there. But it's basically what it's going to boil down to. I mean, I think you look at their roster right now. I think it's probably about 15 players that I can definitively say that will be back next year. They have a lot of players on 1-year contracts. They went all in the last 2 years, and obviously it didn't work. So now you're going to have a whole new regime change, and they're going to want to come in and put their own spin on things. And that's going to probably include the quarterback position with Aaron. And obviously that's the big talking point right now. I don't think he's going to come back. I won't say that 100% definitively. But if I had to put a percentage on it, I would probably say 10 to 15% that he would return next year, December, because he's not happy. I mean, I think he's been drained from this year too. Really, the last couple of years, whether it be rehabbing from the Achilles and working back and thinking they're going to have a really good season, and all of a sudden, kind of the rug just gets pulled out from them, and they don't have as good of a year. So yeah, I definitely think that he's not going to return there. It's been questions of whether Garrett Wilson even wants to return too as well. A lot of people are speculating that he might ask for a trade there. He hasn't been happy there. Really been their second option since Devontae Adams has arrived too. But if Adams is not, if Rodgers is not there, I don't imagine Devontae Adams is going to be there either. And so to answer your question, I don't know if it'll be a 1-year turnaround, but I definitely think they can do it in 2, because their salary cap situation is also not great, considering they had a lot of void contracts, the old regime with Joe Douglas. And for people that don't understand, like void contracts, you're just adding on what they call dummy years. And it goes into, the contract, the years like after this particular year. So they have a lot of void contracts coming off for 25 and also 26. And then if you release Aaron, you're taking a $49 million cap hit in addition to that. So I think next year is going to be about getting their salary cap straightened out, maybe who they draft and getting better in that front. But maybe 2026, I can definitely see them making a jump depending on what that roster looks like.
Yeah, trust me, we know about void years here in Miami, because the Dolphins are very fond of void years. And for those not familiar, that basically means adding years with no guaranteed salary, but basically no salary. It's just extending the signing bonus over 5 years instead of 2 years to make it more cap friendly. Here's a tough one. Put you on the spot. If you were to guess right now, Antoine Staley, who's the starting quarterback for the New York Jets in their 2025 season opener?
Right now, I'll probably say Tyrod Taylor.
Okay.
I think Tyrod is under contract next year. I think they're going to need some kind of veteran presence there. Obviously, he has experience there. Has been a backup there as well. And I think, he would be a good bridge quarterback for some young quarterback, whether it be when they take in 25 or when they, maybe in 26 as well. But I think what I see, especially considering the cap situation, keep Tyrod Taylor, maybe sign some other veteran, maybe like a Justin Fields, maybe somebody like that.
Boyle.
Well, they've been there, done that.
The Dolphins, yeah. Sorry, Tom.
Yeah. But somebody like Justin Fields, and they also have Jordan Travis, who they selected in the 2024 draft. So just let those guys battle it out there. And in addition to that, you try to surround the team, surround the quarterback position with as much talent as you can, and then maybe you drop a quarterback in there and then that guy can possibly be your franchise quarterback. But if I had to guess right now, I probably would say Tyrod Taylor.
Okay. And segue into my next question, that it's Tyrod Taylor's had a couple of really good games against the Dolphins, including one that the Dolphins won on their way to securing a playoff berth. That was 2016. I think you might have still been in Miami back then at that time.
Yeah, I was still covering the Dolphins then. Yeah, I remember the 2017 game where it was New Year's Eve, so it was actually to the 2017. So 7 years to the fact where the Bills clinched, and for the first time since 1999, the playoff berth. So yeah, they broke the streak, and then Tyrod Taylor was part of that. And then
the one I'm looking at the year before, they played in Buffalo on a Saturday afternoon. The Dolphins won 34-31 in overtime, and Tyrod Taylor was lighting it up that day. So I was half almost.
I think Andrew Franks kicked the game-winning field goal, if I remember correctly.
No, you remember incorrectly, my friend. Andrew Franks kicked a 55-yard field goal to send the game to overtime. If you remember, they were out of timeouts. He ran onto the field with the whole operation, and then in overtime, the Dolphins won after Ajayi had a 55-yard run with the Bills having 10 players on defense, which helped.
Okay. Okay. Well,
sorry, didn't mean to correct you, but we're.
But all good. No, I wanted you to correct me. I was trying to remember. I knew Andrew Franks had something to do with that game in particular.
I mean, in wet conditions, 55 yards on the fly with the clock running. That in terms of clutch kicks in Dolphins history, that one is up there. So I was half thinking the Jets are in a weird position because a lot of teams that are playing out the string maybe have some young quarterbacks that they want to give game reps to. But the Jets, it's either Aaron Rodgers or Tyrod Taylor, who both are 30-year-olds. Aaron Rodgers, 40-year-old. So I guess it doesn't make a difference what goes into this. Basically, Aaron says, I want to play, so he plays.
Yeah, basically. I mean, at this point, he's trying to get his 500 touchdown too. So I think one.
Okay.
He just needs one. He tried to get it last week. Obviously, that didn't happen. He threw 2 interceptions there. We'll see if he gets it on Sunday there. But yeah, I think that's the goal for him at this point. And also, I don't think you want to do. And I talked to some of the other writers. I don't think you want to bench him and show you want to show people that the Jets are an organization where veteran players can come. If you bench Aaron Rodgers when he's trying to get his 500 touchdown, and considering the season that they had, some free agents might decide, and you already talking about the Jets being dysfunctional anyway. So you want to make sure that you don't want to alienate anybody that could potentially want to come here in the offseason. So just play the string out, just play him. I mean, there's no point playing Tyrod at this point unless Aaron is seriously injured. So yeah, I think that I do agree with that. And then this may be his last game ever. I mean, he's not decided if he's going to come back or not. So this could be a big game for that as well. I mean, I know he's in the Jets uniform, but he's still one of the best quarterbacks that's ever played the game. So I think people have to also keep that in mind as well.
That's an excellent point that I hadn't thought about. It's an excellent point. So I put you on the spot with the quarterback. It's only right that I put you on the spot with the head coach. Right now, if I ask you, Antoine Staley, who's going to be the head coach for the New York Jets in 2025?
It's hard to say because they need to hire a general manager first. Although the Jets sometimes have done the opposite, which I think is a disservice. I don't think that's the right thing. I think you're supposed to hire the general manager, and the general manager supposed to hire the coach. But having said that, if I had to pick, I probably would say Aaron Glenn, because he has he played for the organization, as you know, was a Pro Bowler there, worked under Parcells. Got out of, once he got done playing, I think his last year, final year was with the Saints. Then he got into scouting and then was in the scouting department there and has really worked his way up to the point now he's the defensive coordinator of the Lions, who a team that's contending for a Super Bowl. And I think, if you're Woody Johnson or the Jets organization, you would like to have somebody that the organization.
Oh, Antoine is freezing a little bit. So I'll fill in with some nuggets here while Antoine hopefully unfreezes with his connection. Aaron Glenn, for those not familiar with Dolphins history, was the cornerback who was covering Mark Ingram.
Okay, there we go. I'm back.
There we go. Okay.
Well, yeah, I was just gonna say the follow-up. Let's just finish what I was saying about Aaron Glenn. You want to think Woody Johnson and I think the Jets organization want somebody that the fans can get behind, and I think the fans, just considering Aaron Glenn's history with the organization, I think he'll be an easy person to get behind.
Oh no, I like that. That's a good call. And for those who might be looking at the Lions defense right now and going, "Well, they're giving up a lot of yards and points." Yeah, they also have like 37
They're
guys on injured
decimated.
reserve. I mean, he's trying to do like work miracles with a lot of spare parts. And as I was mentioning, while your connection was like this, sorry, is he was the cornerback covering Mark Ingram on the famous fake spike play from Dan
That is
Marino.
correct.
But he was actually a very good NFL cornerback. He was a first-round pick out of Texas A&M. Interesting. Any shot whatsoever, and I say this only because I'm very familiar with him because he was in Miami. Also because his defenses are so much fun to watch. But percentage that the Jets' next head coach could be Brian Flores.
I give it like 30%. I think it's possible. I mean, I think it's somebody that they want to talk to. What I understand, just talking with people, they would prefer to have somebody with experience too, especially prior head coaching experience, and then he fits the bill there. Obviously, the Jets are gonna interview with Ron Rivera this week. It's been some talks whether they may or may not go down the Rex Ryan tree again. I don't see that happening. But I definitely think it's possible because they definitely want to get some people in there that has experience there. And I think, if you're looking at that, then I think Brian Flores and also Mike Vrabel, who you brought up, I think would be at the top of the list if that's the, preference there. But yeah, I think it would be interesting. Also, to bring this up too, Brian Flores is from New York. So he grew up in Brownsville.
Correct.
There. He's from the area. I know he, coached with the Patriots for X amount of years there, but it'll be a bit of a homecoming for him. So I definitely think that's also something that the fan base could get behind as well.
Yeah, and for those who immediately would jump up and say, "Well, no, he can't be a head coach again." Look at how poorly he handled player relations in his first stint. Well, guys learn from mistakes; they evolve. Bill Belichick was not a
Bill
very good.
Belichick, Pete Carroll.
There you go. So I would think it would be interesting. Again, it would make the Dolphins Jets games a lot of fun, and his defense. Whatever the hell you want to say about Brian Flores, I don't care. If you're a football fan and you're telling me you watch those defenses and tell me those aren't fun to watch, I can't help you. I mean, because it's like,
And he brings a physical style of play too.
yeah,
Like when you're trying to build a program, then I think you need that type of style. Look at what Dan Campbell's doing. Look what Jim Harbaugh has done this year with the Chargers. They're bringing that physical style of nature of play, especially up in New York where it gets cold and blistery, especially in MetLife where the wind swirls at this time of the year. There, you need to be able to have that physical dominance, and that means having a good offensive line, being able to run the ball effectively whenever you can too, as well. So yeah, I think that's something that I think the Jets need. Somebody like Brian Flores who can just give them that, kick in the rear end and, have them like a physical team that, that can go out. And I think when you have a team like that, you win games that way too, especially late in the season.
yeah, I couldn't help but notice you were kind of poo-pooing the idea of Rex Ryan. Can I ask why?
Well, he's expected to interview with the Jets.
Yeah,
So that's why I just kind of threw it out there. It's not one of my candidates, but he was on radio on Monday and said, so he was asked, does he expect to interview with the Jets? And he said he does. So he's been actively campaigning to be
yeah.
the Jets coach once again. But I don't think that's going to happen for a variety of different reasons, one of which then I think he would probably want this team to come back like how it is. And I don't think that's going to be a bit of an option. I think they need to blow it up and not completely start over, but, get a lot of the veterans out of there and get younger in that way.
Okay, but he's another one of those guys who's fun. I mean,
Oh, yeah.
However you feel about him as a head coach, how good of a coach he is, he's fun. And for me, from a Dolphin standpoint, maybe I have this weird thing that I want to see him become a head coach so we can talk to Wes Welker and ask him some foot questions. And if you're wondering what I'm talking about, YouTube, Wes Welker, feet, Rex Ryan, which is a very famous episode.
Yeah, we actually covered his final game with the Jets, if you remember correctly, in 2014, where they Geno Smith's perfect
Geno
rating,
Smith game,
and
yep.
that helped keep the Dolphins out of the playoffs that year.
Yeah, that was a game. That was a Lamar Miller 97-yard touchdown run game, was it not?
I think so. Yes.
Before we wrap it up, and I wish you a happy new year.
Happy New Year to you, my friend.
Prediction for Sunday. If you're allowed to make one official now, or you have to wait for your publication at your website.
I'm gonna go with the Dolphins. Although the weather's supposed to be chilly, it's supposed to be in the 30s, so keep that in mind. But I think it's gonna be I think it's gonna be low scoring. I think maybe like 2016 Miami. And then the status of Tua is always the big question too. Like if he doesn't play, then I tend to lean probably towards the Jets. But I'm going to, pick the Dolphins just because I think they're going to be motivated to at least try to get into the playoffs. I don't know if they will because I think ultimately Denver is probably going to beat KC if nobody's out. If they got the second and third string players out there, I tend to believe Denver's going to take care of business, especially at home in front of their home crowd and try to get into the playoffs for the first time since they won the Super Bowl in 15. But I think Miami wins. But yeah, I would not expect a high scoring game by any means.
No, and they were able to win at Cleveland. Tyler Huntley played very well, but there was still a lot of dysfunction with the offense, with penalties, with the running game going nowhere, with an end around losing 11 yards and all that good stuff, stuffed on 4th and 1. And they won handily because the Cleveland offense is so bad. And no matter how far Aaron Rodgers is below his prime playing level, he's still eons better than DTR, who the Dolphins faced last
absolutely.
So it's going to be a little bit more complicated, but I kind of lean toward your way with a low-scoring Dolphins win. So that's going to do it. Please like, subscribe, share, all that good stuff. Not going to do anything on Wednesday because it's New Year's Day, so everybody enjoy that. Happy New Year to everyone. You too, Antoine. Please like, subscribe, share, all that good stuff. We'll catch you guys on Thursday. I'm losing my voice. Thanks, everyone.